Hi everyone, welcome back. Today we're focusing on Introduction to Computer Forensics, Section 1. I am Dr. Chanel Suggs, the Duchess of Cybersecurity, the author and instructor for this course. Today we'll be going over Advancements of Computer Forensics, Video 2. So we were to look at some of the advancements in the field of forensics. Consider Francis Galton. He was the one that made the first recorded study when it came to fingerprints. So basically, if you were to compare two fingerprints and one has a point not seen on the other, then those fingerprints would be considered different. This is one of the things that he assessed when he first began. So when he first began his research, he looked at the visual comparisons when it comes to the fingerprints. He also published a book on his findings in 1892, which listed the three most common fingertips or types that should be looked at, which is going to be the loop, the whorl, and the arch. Even today, these classifications are still used. So the Federal Bureau of Investigation actually established a fingerprint repository. Through this identification division beginning in 1924. So over the past 50 years, the FBI has processed more than 200 million fingerprint cards. So in order to eliminate a lot of the duplications when it came to fingerprints and make it also a lot easier to store as well as to share fingerprints among law enforcement agencies, the FBI actually developed the Automated Fingerprint Identification System in 1991, which computerizes these card systems. So the integrated system was introduced in 1999, so law enforcement officials can actually request a set of criminal prints from this organization for integrated system to get a response within 2 hours, for example. So if we were to look at Albert Osborne, he developed the essential features when it comes to considering document examination. So when you're considering document examination and based on the work that was done by Albert, he actually published a book called The Mind of the Jurors as a Judge of the Facts, or the Lawman's View of the Law. So he questioned document examination. He questioned forged documents. He authored Questioned Documents in 1910, which is still in print today. He became an expert when it comes to looking at forged documents as a legal evidence within criminal trials. He also formed the American Society of Questioned Document Examiners in 1942. This organization has continued to grow over the years. He was the first American to utilize the scientific method within examination of questioned documents. So a lot of his legendary texts are going to be related to your questioned documents and the problem of proof that was published in 1910 and 1922. So now if you think about the type of analysis that is done, it's going to be a lot looking at the handwriting analysis, considering your signature comparisons, looking at your handwriting, your typewriting, your hand printing, electronic as well as other methods looking at alterations, studies of impressions on paper, for example, physical features when it comes to printed media. Looking at the ink, the ribbons, the cartridges, as well as the papers. Even shoe print. Looking at vehicle tread impressions analysis as well. Even today, the forensic methods that was used by Albert is still being studied, as well as looking at conclusions, as well as looking at the expertise that he brought, as well as information that he quoted within contemporary courts of law. So next, let's look at Leon Laetz. He focused more on the blood groupings. So whenever you're looking at, for example, the various blood types, looking at A, B, AB, and type O. So whenever he first began, back in 1915 is when he actually devised a specific procedure to look at the various blood stains. His procedures are still used today. He developed a procedure to apply to blood testing to stains on the fabric as well as various other types of materials. So he did this by finding a way in order to use saline solution to restore dried blood to this liquid form. So he invented a way to be able to test those antibodies and dried blood flakes as well. So he looked at, for example, when he was looking at the various blood types, looking at those plasmas, looking at what's forming, looking at the antibodies. Looking at the surface when it comes to the antigens as well. Looking at how they form based on these various blood types. So next, let's look at Hans Gross. He made use of scientific study based on looking at criminal investigations. He's also known as the founding father when it comes to criminal profiling. So throughout his life, he's made a lot of contributions when it comes to scientific criminology. His efforts focus more on expanding deep investigation, looking at your professional ethics and scientific methods. He defined criminal psychology from a technical viewpoint. He also looked at studying a person's behavior, also considering making sure you're looking at misleading evidence as well. So making sure you're taking a thorough look at the investigation, making sure that misleading evidence isn't stopping you from seeing what the real keys are to your investigation. His research also led to methods that are used for the creation when it came to crime scene analysis as well. So whenever you're looking at overall examinations, within the criminal proceedings, you want to make sure that you're balancing the necessary emotions, especially trying to look at the evidence within a logic manner. So Hans introduced the concept when it came to criminalistics in 1893. This divided the criminanalysis within two branches, looking at your crime as well as your political science side. He also wrote a book which covers systematic aspects of criminology. So his book looks at the deficiencies when it comes to criminalistics. Looking at the human nature, what are the motives when it comes to crimes, which is something we'll be discussing much later in the course, of course. Looking at the material and those elements, looking at any types of inconsistencies when it comes to judges and witnesses, looking at the importance of materialistic evidence relating to facts within reason. Next, we have Calvin Goddard. So he looked at bullet comparisons when it comes to firearms for solving a lot of the pending court cases. So here we have Calvin Goddard. So Calvin Goddard did a lot with bullet comparisons when it came to solving a lot of court cases, for example. He examined the bullet casings in 1992 in the St. Valentine's Day Massacre as well. He wrote an article when it came to the Army Ordinance for Forensic Ballistics, in which it described the use of comparisons when it came to microscopes regarding firearm investigations. He also helped to establish the Bureau of Forensic Ballistics in New York City. That bureau was formed in order to provide firearm identification services throughout the United States. He also spoke extensively when it came to forensics ballistics, as well as firearm identification. So when it came to the Bureau of Forensics Ballistics, this was the first independent criminalistic laboratory, which was headed by Calvin Goddard, where the ballistics, fingerprints, blood analysis, and trace evidence was actually brought under this one location for analysis. So when it came to the comparison microscope, this was developed by Philip Gravel for identification of fired bullets as well as cartridge cases, with the support of Calvin Goddard. So when we look at the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, just a little bit of history here. This was during the height of the Prohibition, where there was a lot of gang warfare going on. So 7 men were awaiting a shipment of stolen alcohol, basically. It actually contained a setup for an attempt to kill the rival. So while the man was awaiting for the others to pull up, they saw a police car that pulled up, so they stayed in back and watched. But the police that entered the warehouse and the barrages of the machine gun fire was heard. So these were not real police officers. These was those that was dressed to believe that, to get the others to believe they was actual real police officers. And when authorities arrived, they found the 7 men dead inside. 70 cases were recovered from the scene. And so, when we go back to Calvin, he was the one that examined the bullet casings from this massacre in 1929. And then in 1932, the FBI began to offer their forensic services. So these services, it was a lab that was set up to provide services to all the field agents as well as other law authorities across the country. This was just the beginning of more things to come as we had more advancements within forensics. So as you're looking at the people that was noted for advancements listed within this slide here, this dates back to 1822 all the way through 1932, for example. So as you can see, forensics has continued to advance more and more with each researcher that was found. When it comes to the developments within computer forensics, you have to think about, for example, CART, which is going to be your Computer Analysis and Response Team. So CART is actually within the FBI laboratories. They provide assistance to various FBI field offices when it comes to search and seizures for computer evidence, as well as looking at forensics examinations and providing technical support for investigations within the FBI. They have a state-of-the-art forensic laboratory, which is comprised of, for example, your computer and network specialists that are trained and equipped with the forensic examinations that are assigned to over 50 field locations. So whenever we look at what's offered here when it comes to the FBI, they actually offer you with information when it comes to computer examinations, and there's also the handbook for forensic services. So when it comes to looking at the International Organization on Computer Evidence, they was formed in 1995. So they was created in order to provide that international law enforcement agencies a forum when it comes to exchanging information concerning computer crime investigation, as well as looking at any types of computer-related forensic issues. So they actually identify as well as discuss issues when it comes to interests, when it comes to constituents, facilities, as well as looking at international dissemination of information, helping to develop those recommendations that are going to be needed for consideration. For example, so they was actually tasked with the development of international standards when it comes to exchange and recovery of electronic devices as well. So when you think about standardization for recovery of computer-based evidence, when you look at their standards, and when it comes to international principles, looking at consistency when it comes to all illegal systems, looking at durability, allowance when it comes to common languages or the use of common languages, the abilities when it comes to crossing international boundaries, the ability to instill the confidence when it comes to the integrity of that evidence, accountability when it comes to all forensic evidence, as well as accountability at every level, including individuals, the agencies, as well as countries. So when you look at the International Forensics Science Symposium, they look at the advances when it comes to scientific methods, looking at suggestions for ways that you can apply them when it comes to criminal investigations. When it comes to their aims, they're bringing together specialists from Interpol, for example, members of countries across the world. They look at exchanging information to enhance the scientific contributions when it comes to criminal investigations, as well as administration of justice. Being able to present those updates that are made within forensic evidence types. This has been done over the previous 3 years. Discussing what are those current problems. What type of solutions out there? Looking for proposing possible solutions to the current problems that needs to be addressed today. Identifying various trends as well as their potential impact when it comes to forensic science. So when we look at the Scientific Working Group on Digital Evidence, they bring together various organizations to actively engage when it comes to looking at digital as well as multimedia evidence in order to hope to foster communication as well as cooperation to ensure quality and consistency when it comes to the forensics community. So they bring together various law enforcement, commercial organizations, as well as academia to engage in the field of digital forensics, to develop a cross-disciplinary guideline as well as standards, consider things that are going to be required for recovery, looking at how we're preserving this information, so preservation and examination of digital evidence. So we also have the International Journal of Digital Evidence, where you can go and look at previously posted papers related to forensics. There's also the American Society of Crime Laboratory Directors and Laboratory Accreditation Board. So this is a nonprofit professional society when it comes to crime laboratories, dedicated to providing excellence within forensic science through leadership as well as innovation. So what is the purpose? The purpose of this organization is to be able to foster professional interest, looking to assist with the development of laboratory management principles, techniques, acquire and preserve, as well as disseminate forensics-based information, maintain, as well as improve communications among crime laboratory directors, as well as promoting, encouraging, and maintaining the highest standards when it comes to practicing in the field. There's also the Digital Forensics Research Workshop. So when you look at what is their vision, it's to be able to foster transdisciplinary approaches when it comes to trying to address emerging challenges within digital forensics. How do they do this? By trying to bring together innovative researchers, practitioners around the globe, as well as developers. So when it comes to looking at their overall vision, when it comes to looking at inclusion, they look at reaching out to everyone that has a legitimate interest when it comes to digital forensics, innovation, trying to push the envelope when it comes to what is currently possible within the realm of digital forensics. Looking at the usability, so what is those practical solutions that can be provided when it comes to real world problems? Scientific practice, figuring out some systematic processes, what's going to give us those reliable results. So their overall mission is to be able to maintain a dynamic community of experts from academia as well as those that are in practice. Their mission encompasses research, practice, and education to attract new perspectives as well as fostering that exchange of ideas when it comes to advancements within digital forensics. Figuring out ways to promote scholarly discussions related to digital forensics research, as well as looking at applications. Engaging with practitioners from law enforcement, looking at civilian sectors, looking at the military to focus on research as well as development that can address current as well as emerging challenges when it comes to digital forensics. They also, when it comes to their mission, engage in regular debates, collaboration activities to help shape the focus as well as looking at high interest and efficiency. Being able to define what are those core principles that form the focus when it comes to useful research and development. Establishing and expanding within a community speaks the same language. Increasing scientific rigor. Inspiring the next generation to invent novel solutions. So this is a nonprofit organization that is dedicated to bringing together everyone that is legitimately interested in digital forensics and trying to figure out the best ways to address those emerging challenges when it comes to the field. They actually organize digital forensic conferences. They also do challenges as well as international collaboration in order to help to drive the direction of research and development. They try to provide and foster an atmosphere to share research papers, looking at those presentations and works in progress. Each one of their conferences or gatherings includes technical workshops. You have your panels, your demos, as well as your breakout sessions to give you interesting related information that is based on digital forensics. So this organization vision is to bring together those that are truly interested in forensics, looking at your researchers, your practitioners, as well as those that are in academia and industry. So here we have CART, Computer Analysis and Response Team. This is, as I noted before, part of the FBI laboratories. Within 1999, they conducted 2,400 examinations when it came to computer evidence, and as well as provided technical support for investigations as well as prosecution of cases. As well, they are assigned to over 56 offices. When it comes to forensic examiners, they also have the automated computer examination system, which combines the advanced computer hardware as well as software when it comes to conducting a lot of the routine examinations when it comes to self-documenting as well as automation. They also coordinate with the Department of Defense Computer Forensics Laboratory. So through this collaboration, they conduct computer forensics analysis as well as share develop technology principles, procedures, and techniques. So this enhances their capabilities when it comes to research and development of tools by combining their efforts with the Department of Defense Computer Forensics Laboratory. Looking at development of tools that can be used within examinations that involves intrusions as well as other online investigations. So they consist of nearly 500 highly trained and certified special agents, as well as other professional personnel that works within the FBI headquarters throughout all 56 field offices, within the network of regional computer forensics laboratories across the nation. So they actually analyze a variety of digital media, looking at your desktops, your laptop computers, your CDs and DVDs, your digital cameras, as well as your cell phones, digital media players, as well as flash media. So within 2012 alone, while supporting nearly 10,400 investigations, they conducted more than 13,300 digital forensic examinations, including more than 10,500 terabytes of data. So their examiners are experts when it comes to extracting data from digital media, even when the media may be damaged by forces of nature or by those defendants. So when it comes to looking at what their examiners work span, when it comes to program areas, they look at cyber crimes as well as computer intrusions to violent crimes. They look at financial crimes, organized crimes, as well as national security matters. They also have CART on the go for stationary facilities in the field. So they have 6 mobile CART laboratories around the country as well. Here we have the Scientific Working Group on Digital Evidence. They were established in 1998. This organization membership has approximately 70 forensic examiners, as well as scientists, managers from more than 2 dozen state, federal, as well as local law enforcement agencies, as well as looking at representatives that they have within the academia, private, and research communities. So they provide guidance when it comes to the digital forensics community, using publication of standards, guidelines, as well as best practices. They also encourage a number of published documents to be used when it comes to standards for development organizations, when it comes to the creation of national as well as international standards for digital as well as multimedia evidence. The initial members were those from the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Unit, Drug Enforcement Agency, the Federal Bureau of Investigations, U.S. Customs, the U.S. Postal Inspection Service, the U.S. Secret Service, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, the Department of Defense Computer Forensics Laboratory, as well as the Internal Revenue Service Criminal Investigation. So they promote the establishment and maintenance when it comes to the quality of systems through publication of relevant guidance documents, looking at position papers, looking at your guidelines when it comes to validation testing, the minimum requirements when it comes to quality assurance. They seek to provide agencies with frameworks to insert their own criteria when trying to describe what should be included within those protocols. Their documents are freely available to the community with the goal that agencies wishing to create as well as improve their digital evidence programs will examine the considered guidance. They have published over 40 guidance documents, including documents for Scientific Working Group on Imaging Technologies. So whenever you look at the Scientific Working Group for Imaging Technologies, they provide guidance to law enforcement agencies as well as criminal justice systems regarding those best practices that should be used for photography, videography, and video as well as image analysis. This is one of those groups that was terminated in 2015. But during their existence, they provided information regarding the uses various of imaging technologies, both established and new. They also presented some best practices. They collaborated with other scientific working groups to address imaging concerns. They published over 20 documents as well. They co-published quite a few documents when it came to the Scientific Working Group on Digital Evidence that had components dealing with imaging technologies. They also provided technology guidance when it came to input for documents, as well as looking at Scientific Working Group on friction ridge analysis. They also assisted the American Society of Crime Lab Directors and Laboratory Accreditation Boards when it came to creating those definitions and standards of the accreditation of digital as well as multimedia evidence sections when it came to crime laboratories. So whenever you're looking at some of the attending as well as lecture meetings and conferences from various forensic organizations that was a part of this unit. This would include, for example, the American Academy of Forensic Sciences, the International Association for Identification, Law Enforcement and Emergency Services for Video Association, as well as the American Society of Crime Lab Directors. They initially consisted of approximately 50 scientists, photographers, instructors, as well as managers from more than 24 federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies, as well as, of course, academia and research communities. Their standing subcommittees were basically the image analysis, forensics photography, video, as well as outreach. So when it comes to the International Forensic Science Managers Symposium, they was formed in 1999. They actually hold a symposium every 3 years to look at bringing together laboratory managers from Interpol, countries across the world. They look at the advances when it comes to scientific methods, as well as I noted before, suggesting ways to apply them within criminal investigations. So whenever it comes to their symposiums, they last for 3 days. This includes different sessions related to scientific papers, poster presentations, workshops, as well as panel discussions. So their laboratories have internationally recognized the competence to carry out functions related to reviewing progress as well as the trends when it comes to evidence types, preparing overview documents, as well as presenting key issues for review. And as noted previously, their aims are to bridge together specialists when it comes to Interpol members for countries across the world, exchanging information when it comes to enhanced scientific contributions that are used within criminal investigations, presenting those updates when it comes to forensic evidence types based on the previous 3 years, discussing what are those current problems, as well as trying to propose possible solutions and identify those trends, as well as what are the potential impacts when it comes to forensic science. This concludes this section on advancements of computer forensics. Within this section, we looked over various scientists, such as your Francis Galton, your Albert Osborne, your Hans Gross, for example, as well as Gavin Goddard and Leon Lates. We also went through some of the developments when it came to computer forensics, some of those organizations that are still in existence today, as well as some that has currently disbanded. So for example, we discussed your computer analysis and response teams, looking at your International Organization on Computer Evidence, as well as International Forensic Science Symposium. We looked at science working groups as well as the American Society of Crime Laboratory Directors and Laboratory Accreditations Board. We also went a little bit more in depth on the computer analysis and response team as it relates to the Federal Bureau of Investigation. We also discussed a little bit more in depth on the Scientific Working Group on Digital Evidence, as well as the International Forensic Science Managers Symposium. Up next, we'll be discussing the roles within computer forensics, video 3 for section 1.